Hey guys, Emily Muccianti here, and I'm back with another reading intervention video. And today we are going to talk about what do you do with all of that middle of the year benchmark assessment data that you have been collecting, because it's that time of year right now. But before we get into it, remember to please like this video. If you like it, subscribe, share it with just one person. If you like to be part of the conversation, visit readinglabsos.com or join my Facebook or Instagram by the same name. You can also email me at readingdiva06@gmail.com. All right, so let's get into this. It is December 2021 right now. And if you are fortunate enough to have a universal screener, you are going through middle of the year assessments, which means ideally you're testing the entire school population, because that's how we make sure that nobody falls through the cracks. But you've got all this data. What do you do with it? I think is the big question, because data is really great, but it's only as good as how we use it. All right. So a couple of things that I want to point out. First thing is, what can you celebrate? What has your school grown in? What kind of areas do you see some really great growth? How did your intervention kids perform? What can we step back and take a moment to reflect and celebrate? Because that's really exciting. We need to remember that our kids that are in intervention need to make better than average progress so that we can actually catch them up. I used to always get really excited when I see a kid go up, and then I'd realize, oh, they're going up. That's great. That's better than staying the same or going backwards. But I need to move them quicker because we got a lot to catch up on. So what do we do with the data? Well, we celebrate. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as you're looking at your data, you want to see what trends or patterns you notice across the board. Universal screening data can be very enlightening when we look at our tier 1 instruction, because we can see a really big picture. And what you want to look for is, what kinds of skills are our students still struggling with that might be across the board, and we can take that instruction and push it into the core classroom, into the tier 1 instruction. Let me give you an example. One of my schools, and actually a couple of schools, this has been a trend, so keep a lookout for this one. I noticed when we were doing our benchmark data that our students, our gen ed, I mean, everybody across the board was struggling in the K2 with phonemic awareness. And it happened to be something also that I didn't have a lot of resources in our reading lab to support this. So, and it was a glaring deficit. So I knew I had to bring it into intervention. We absolutely had to do that and make sure that our kids were getting it. But I noticed that so many of our other students that didn't qualify for intervention still had this deficit. And if you remember, phonemic awareness is an early predictor of reading difficulties. So if we know that in kindergarten and first grade, we want to try to get in there and support that skill deficit as much as we can. And so it made sense in our situation to put that instruction into the gen ed classroom. And what we did was, we actually purchased Hegarty curriculum for all of our K2 classes. And this was really a good way to make sure that we were hitting what needed to be hit. And then when our kids came into the reading lab, they were getting more of that instruction and a little more intense. And it made a lot of sense that way. And we saw some amazing growth. So what can you push into the general classroom in your tier 1 instruction, I think is a really big conversation that needs to be happening with your staff. So that leads me to this. You need to share the data with your teachers. Okay. I suggest meeting with your administration first and saying, here's the data, here's what I noticed, give them some time to peruse the data themselves. And then always right after any benchmark assessment, so beginning of the year, middle of the year, and even at the end of the year, you want to try to get on your staff schedule for an early release or a PD day so that you can spend a couple of hours showing them the data, helping them to understand the data, giving them some tasks to do to work with the data within their grade levels so that they can start to see, okay, this is where we're strong and this is where we can make some improvements. Because we know that we cannot, this is words of Anita Archer, my goddess, my phonics goddess. You cannot intervene your way out of a tier 1 instruction gap. And at our school, phonemic awareness was a gap. And so that's something that we did. You may find it in other areas, but keep that in mind. But you can't just tell your teachers to do this. Teachers have to see this for themselves. So it's really important that they're looking at the data with you, that you are guiding them, that sometimes they'll make observations you may have missed. So it's a team effort. Remember, when we're looking at a school-wide intervention program, we need the entire school involved in the conversation. So share the data with your teachers, see if they can find, what can I do in my instruction? And something like phonemic awareness, we can put 10 minutes in every day in kinder first grade, maybe even second, and really make some serious improvements in that area. So make sure that you are having those conversations. All right. So the other thing is, as you're looking at the data, you're also comparing your intervention students because you've been giving this instruction. It is, explicit and direct, and you want to see how they performed in relation to their peers. And what's really nice, depending on your universal screening tool, but you can see who started kind of at that below level or at-risk level and see if you moved anyone out of that risk category. And those are really exciting conversations to have. If you have a team of paras, this is something that you want to spend some time with your paras going through this data because they want to celebrate as well. This is their hard work as much as yours, and they need to be involved in this conversation. So make sure that you do that as a PD day, an hour with your paras, super important. So after you go through this data, what is it in maybe your interventions that you need to add? What instructional deficits do you still see? Because you may not have enough resources or curriculum to help support that area. And so if you see that, this is a great time, middle of the year, to start looking at your budgets and seeing what you can add. In my experience, about February through March, our admins are coming in with money that they may not have realized that they had, or you might get a couple $100 here, get a couple $100 there that you can support. It might come from your Title I money. You may be getting COVID relief money, that sort of thing. And it's really a good idea to have a list of areas where you need to build up those supplemental resources. So when that money becomes available, you can go, got it, here it is, I want to order this. And there are some great tools that you can look. If you want to talk about some specifics, reach out to me, drop a comment. I'll be happy to share some of the things that I love. You've heard me talk about Hegarty. I love Hegarty. Anything by Kilpatrick, anything by Anita Archer. Those are some really good resources to have that follow the science of reading, and it's primo good stuff. Okay, so the other thing is have conversations with your students. Let them see where they are growing. And I always really put a positive spin on this because any growth is good growth in their eyes, and it can be very motivating. You know from your experience viewpoint that sometimes growth is great, but we need to accelerate the growth. But have these conversations with your kids, point out what they did well, and I'm talking about your intervention kids, point out, okay, next semester, this is what we're going to work on, and really motivate them, set some goals, and then you can start tracking that in your progress monitoring. Okay, so that's it. You've got your benchmark data under your belt. You want to share it with your teachers, share it with your intervention team, share it with your admin, share it with your students, celebrate what you can celebrate, look at where the gaps are, build in some supplemental resources for yourself in your intervention lab, help your teachers find some things that they could use in their classrooms as well to kind of take some of that burden off of you as well. And then make sure that you continue to progress monitor those students and compare where you are from middle of the year to the end of the year, you know, come the end of spring in May, around May, and you're going to be on your path to a really great start. Okay, that's it for now, you guys. Thank you for doing what you do. Much love to you. Keep fighting the good fight. If you need me, you know where to find me, and I hope to see you soon. Mwah. Bye for now.